Exciting interviews and demonstrations from our friends at Grease and Gears Garage are in the house.
All right, folks, you're going to want to make your way over. Sunday morning. It means it followed a Saturday night. It's always a rough time for a lot of us. Not me. I went home and went to bed, but for a lot of us, it's a hard time. I know it is because Kyle Shorey's not here this morning, so I'm sure he's hurting someplace today. But listen, my name's Pat Jansen. I'm from Sin Central Garage in Iowa, but I'm here as the host of Grease and Gears Garage. And what we're doing is we've got Facebook Live, so there's going to be probably this morning we'll probably have 20, 30,000 people join us on Facebook Live. But we're also going to have you join us. This is a garage. Progressive International Motorcycle Shows has been kind enough to offer some greasy mechanics the opportunity to bring our tools on stage and then invite up friends of ours who are professional motorcycle builders to show you kind of what we do in our shops on a day-in, day-out basis. Just one thing that we're going to do. So Dana Menefee, Dana, come on up with Jim.
Yeah, Jim.
So Dana is from Siouxicide choppers. Now, Dana, I got to do one thing before I do this. See this nice hat? I walked all over this place. I've got beautiful hair, by the way. My brother's bald. That's why I pointed out John. He's the finance manager at Gainesville Harley-Davidson. I'm sure is watching this morning. See that hair? I still got all mine, beard. But I'm going to wear a hat today. So anyway, I still pick up my older brother. But I was looking for a flat-bill black hat, and I couldn't find one anyplace all weekend. I walked the whole show. Turns out there's one on a rack right there at Shift in that area. And Cafe Racers of Instagram hooked me up with this very nice black flat brim hat. So if you go to Instagram and go at Cafe Racers of Instagram, you're going to see guys wearing this hat. So anyway, I wanted to give them a shout-out. Thank you for the hat. Dana, what a terrible name for a shop. Siouxicide Choppers. Why you call your shop Siouxicide Choppers, man?
It started a long time ago. We were riding Siouxicide Shift motorcycles, and we're from Sioux City, Iowa, so we combined it so it's Siouxicide.
So it's not quite as brutal. So now it makes sense.
Not quite,
Not quite. Do you get a lot of grief over that?
Yeah, I do.
Kevin Dunworth, I don't know if you know Kevin. Kevin's out of Baltimore. He's got a shop there, Loaded Gun Customs.
Right.
And he, when he started it, back in the day, it wasn't that big a deal. But now Loaded Gun Customs has become controversial, and so he's sometimes having to answer questions about that. So.
Yeah, it was a lot, funnier back in the day,
Yeah, it becomes less funny as it becomes. But anyway, Sioux City, Iowa. So we're Iowa boys. We're corn-fed. That's why we're built like men. So, right? This is what men look like, ladies. So that's a man right there. That's like two men's right there. Right. And it's a big dude. What do you do? Golly. Do you play football or something? Yeah, I bet. Right. Yeah. Now he's a bouncer at a strip club. If I had to bet, that's what you did. Where? No. A warehouse. You're a bouncer in a warehouse.
He's a forklift.
He's a forklift. So Iowa guys here. Custom motorcycles happen everywhere in the least likely places. But Dana has some phenomenal stuff that he does out of his shop. And first, before you get started, he's going to be talking to us about dimensions of front ends, rakes, trail, that kind of stuff. It's math. But he's going to break it down and make it simple. I know he is because I know Dana, and I know that he's not going to do anything that's very complicated mathematically. But he's going to break it down, and he's got to – look at you up there. Man, that's a sexy pose. Look at him. He's posing, too.
Yeah,
hand on the hip.
That's a good one.
That's a good picture. Anyway, so Dana, I don't know if can you tell me about the front end that you do without talk? Is that part of your thing you're going to be doing with us?
No, we can talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Look close at this because this is tricky.
On the front end, Siouxicide Choppers, me, myself, a couple other people helped me. We put this front end together. People come in the shop all the time wanting a Springer front end on this model of a motorcycle. It's not as easy as just bolting one on. You have to change, a lot of times you have to change the bike structurally or the way Harley-Davidson had it set up. But one night we were actually building triple trees for the motorcycle, and it's like, why do that when Harley Davidson already did it for us?
He was copying Triple Trees, he realized.
Yeah, I just spent 6 hours cutting and grinding on this piece that Harley Davidson had a better, lighter one on the bike already that I was going to throw away. So all we did is made some modifications to the tube and the spring perch, which allows you to literally just slide this in where your fork tubes were and add a springer. And from there we had to look, but then we had to make it work, and that's where all the rake and trail comes into. And all the time people call, and the way we have our rake and trail set up, usually our setup is between 2 3/4 and 3 1/4 inches of positive trail, where we're going to show you how to calculate the trail and find the right length of your front end. But people call me all the time and they say they don't like the rockers that are on this, but they do have a stock Sportster Dyna, so they want the Sugar Bear rockers,
Right on.
And it's like, yeah, those really look cool, but you can't run those.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, why not? And I'm like, well, it throws your trail into the negative side, which in returns people call it like the shopping cart effect, which does all your speed wobbles. And if you get it out into the negative trail, you couldn't ride from here to the Suzuki sign without some trouble. So
right.
That's kind of the issue of a lot of the springers, especially when you go to bolt it on a stock bike. It's a little bit more lenient when you get to a bike like your chopper style. Anything over like 34, 35 degrees on the neck rake, the way the frame's set up, then it's a lot easier. You have a lot more options as far as rake triple trees for your look or for your rake and trail. The size of your rocker, the front end you could run, all that comes into play then. But a bike like that is a lot more forgiving than a bike like this when you go to bolt different front ends on.
So, I mean, and I like Dana to point that out, because this you call it the slip-on springer. So literally with this particular springer for Harley Davidsons, but you've done them for other bikes as well. He can do this for anything. He's got a custom shop, but this particular piece is sold through J&P Cycles, and literally you can just bolt this springer to your Sportster or Dyna or whatever, and you're going to be able to have a springer front end in about 4 hours. You're going to use your stock brake. You can just flip it to the other side. I mean, it's a really slick setup, super simple, and he's done all the math for you, so you know when you get on the bike it's going to ride great. So I love that part. Dana actually built one of these for us on Grease and Gears Garage Stage in Sturgis this year at the Iron Horse, and just a slick front end. I love the fact that when he thought of it, he and another guy spent 2 days on the computer Googling and said, somebody's done this before.
Yeah.
He said,
it's actually so easy that,
he says, somebody's had to, and it turns out he was the first one to ever think of using the stock triple trees and doing a slip-on springer front end. So kudos to you for falling into genius.
Right.
You just stumbled into a smart thing.
Right. Yeah, many builders look at it at shows and they're just like,
I did. When I saw it, I was like, oh, my God, why didn't I think of that? So,
and I don't know why I didn't think of it 10 years earlier,
Yeah,
it's one of the things.
One of those things where you just hit your head on a tree and finally, oh, yeah, okay, I can do it this way. So now, all right, well, so that's his Siouxicide chopper's front end. You can get that at J&P Cycles, the world's largest distributor of aftermarket motorcycle parts.
Yep.
So you can go there and get that from him. Another great Iowa-born company right there, so supporting an Iowa shop. Now, talk to me about Rake and Trail. None of this ever makes sense to us when we're doing it on our bikes. We hear it all the time. We see it. Break it down for us. Tell us about our front ends.
Well, first of all, we were going to talk about a little bit, if you have a frame here, you're building a bike, you don't have the front end yet, or you want to order a front end, we were going to talk about the proper ways of measuring the front end so you can order a front end. typically when we set up a bike in the shop, it's really nice to have the rear end set up before you even mess with the front end, as far as having the height of the shock, suspension, rigid frame, the right wheel, the right tire. You want the rear ride height where you want it before you order the front end. If this frame, you have to set the frame up so the ride height that you want is there. That's what you want. You don't want, if you don't want the frame on an incline going up, like you're going down the street doing a wheelie, you don't want it diving, because everything that you do on the incline or the dive, it does affect the rake of the neck. The rake of the neck is what the manufacturer put in there when this is level. So if you do not have this level, this will change a degree or two with the frame.
Because you see guys that want to do that kind of St. Louis D-rake look. And so what they do is they take their stock bike and they put these long-ass tubes on them, and they raise that front end up, and their frame is sitting like this, and those things just have to be a beast to ride. I've never ridden one. Those things just have to be sketchy.
Right. And on those bikes, you might have one of those St. Louis style D-rake, or, the ones with the long front ends where the frame's doing the wheelie, and basically that you're bringing up where the center of gravity is different. So the Rake and Trail might be close on paper, but the center of gravity is up, which will create
flop
heavy
on the whole bike.
The top end heavy, yeah. So that's what we start with, is just your frame setup. When I first started, I'm a welder by trade. So when we started building bikes, a lot of the frames you couldn't order like today. You exactly the rake, the stretch that you want. So we would find a frame, modify an existing frame, buy a cheap frame, whatever we had to do. And basically we were using the motor mounts a lot of times because I didn't have the capability of remanufacturing motor mounts. So, and then I would find a front end at a swap meet or whoever had one. And then you're like this, I want this to fit on the bike. So the first chopper I built, we actually we got the frame set up here. We bolted the front end on, so it's sitting up like it's doing a wheelie. And we took a Sawzall and cut 3/4 of the way through that and just let it drop down on 2 blocks of wood.
4x4s.
Yeah.
That's the way we used to do it.
Heat it up, drop it. That's where I want it. Make your gussets, weld it back up, run it down the road. And it worked, But at that point in time, I had no idea what trail was. I knew I had
if you got off the road, you were on a trail.
Yeah, that's basically it. And I knew what the rake was, We put the little dial on there. And it's cool. It's 45-degree rake, So it didn't really come about till, later when the Rake and Trail came about, because it seemed like when we were building the choppers, we were out in that positive number so high. Some of them were heavy, but, you're building them for, back in the day, we were younger, and it doesn't matter, make the handlebars a little wider, and you turn it easy,
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we started doing. And then, then we started building our own frames. And, there has to be an easier way than just, hey, that front end looks cool, let's try to fit it on this. Now the custom market was coming around. You could order pretty much any front end you wanted, the links. So then you're sitting there and you need to calculate the front end. And on a lot of times on the calculation part, if you want to do it on paper, you set your frame up and you have measurements from the ground to the top of your neck. And basically, there's a straight line. We got
pictures.
basically there's a straight line. You see the square coming down from the neck. Basically, that's a right angle triangle, you know. So you're back in math class just like you were back in the day, and you're trying to find the hypotenuse of a triangle, basically. And the hypotenuse, you got the flat of a 90-degree plane is right here coming down from your neck to the axle. So basically, like a 21-inch tire in wheels, like 13 and a half. From the ground to the center of the axle with the ride height that you want.
The reason it's 13 and a half because you're adding for the tire as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're adding for the tire. This one here is right at 12 3/4. So it's just a little bit different setup than the 21 that I had one set based on. But if you know this distance, then you have to bring the distance, the measurement from the top of your neck to the ground. Then you would subtract that 13 and a half for whatever wheel tire you're running.
Center of the axle.
So if you're running a 26-inch, you have to measure the center of that, bring it over, and you would have to subtract that number from the distance from the ground to the top of your frame right there.
Okay.
So once you do that, on the one we figured, it was a 21-inch wheel. Basically, it was a frame that was 8 inches of stretch with a 45-degree rake. So we had a 26 3/8 of an inch, basically from this imaginary line to the top of the frame. So we're a little bit taller than this one. We were 8 inches up. So yeah, we're coming over there, and we're at 26 3/8 of an inch up to there. So if we know that measurement, and we know this is a right triangle, and we know this rake angle, and basically the rake angle, if you measure it, it's from this plane, and it goes this direction. They have many things to put on here to measure the rake. So those are the only two measurements that you actually need. So if you took, say this frame, the frame we did is 45 degrees, and that's where you get into like your trigonometry, where you go, the cosine of 45 degrees is,
Oh, sorry. He's doing the math for me. I would do it in my head, but it's his show, so. Cosine, if you throw those in some cities, they'll shoot you. You know, you can't, you know, it's like.
right.
Whatever.
So the cosine of 45 degrees, any phone has the cosine of the triangle degree. That's 0.707. So if we went with 26.375, which is 3/8, divided by that cosine 707, it equals 37 3/8. So what that's saying is the front end that we figured up on that frame is 37 3/8 of an inch from this point to the center of the axle. So that's math, and you can find pretty much how to do a right angle triangle on the internet anywhere.
Yeah.
And from there, you can figure out your rake and trail coming down off that triangle. Anymore at our shop, we don't use that too much anymore. I have a ruler that we use, and it's pretty much good for, you have to build a pretty long bike for this not to work. And the reason I like using this is because on every, like, wide glide triple tree, you basically have that offset in the triple tree. And the offset is from the neck center to there, and that's where your tube's going to go. On most average offset hydraulic tubes is like a 2-inch, 2 1/8 offset, which this is 2-inch. So when we put this on the front of the neck, basically, and we roll the tire up because we know we're at a straight line, then we get our front end measurement.
Okay.
So that's
pretty slick.
This is what we use, and then you use this plane out in front of the neck, and that pretty much has your offset
figured in already. So
set in it.
Yeah.
So
that's a trick for you guys watching. That's like when Chris and Mark use the fuel line to find the radius on the rear fender here, and then that's a trick that you're just not going to find every place. So that's going to save you a little bit of mental work. So
right.
That's awesome.
So from there, if you wanted to figure the rake and trail on, basically this is the red line's coming down from the center of your neck, which is the center of the pivot point, which sets up your pretty much triangle for the rake and trail. So what we use a lot of times is just the string, and they have a steering stop on this, but
if you need me to help you, I don't mind helping.
Basically just go down
to the table.
Find the point, yeah. Go out that way a little bit more. Right in.
We're close there.
Yep.
Back further. Are we there?
Yep.
All right.
Right there. Put this nut. And we'd marked where that sat. Go ahead and put that right there.
Okay.
And
you just set that down like a golfer. I don't know this to be true, but I saw it on Happy Gilmore. When they're putting, they put the coin down. They have to pick up their ball for some reason. I'm not sure. They lost a turn. I'm not sure of the rules of golf. But anyway, that's what he just did. He just marked that point with a nut, which is another cool trick, instead of trying to figure out how to keep that string there.
Right. So now we got our point here, and we do the straight line down like the green line represents straight down from the axle. And basically what you could do is just measure right there, and you would be at a positive 4.5 trail there, which this bike will handle really good. So what they say is, between 2 and 5 is your best trail. And what they mean by that is once you get into that's a positive number, so you can't really run something with negative trail like we said before. And basically, it would be a bike set up like that, to where you have the Rake triple trees because they look cool, and they're way out.
Right, and because and you can see in your diagram, when you begin doing that, you get that further out there, you're gonna get what's called flop.
Right.
I mean, it's just now. There's a lot of. I have a bike here, 10.5 feet long.
Right.
It's trying to figure the rake and trail on that. For me, at some point with those bikes, I kind of give up. I'm just like, it's not a sport bike. I mean, eventually, but you still have to figure that. I mean, you still have to make sure that the thing's going to be rideable. Now, with sport bikes, dirt bikes, they're twitchier. That rake comes back real short.
Right.
So when you begin to, what do you think is too much? It's under 2.5 inches, then you kind of want to stop.
Yeah, most of the sport bikes, like the race bikes, they're set up between 2 3/4 of an inch to 3 1/4. And basically what they do is, they can run rake, like D-rake trees, or, some of the other race bikes, they'll actually, or like the older metrics, will have the axle mounted behind the tube. And what that does is brings this back, And what they do that for is because their necks are more straight up and down. And, You know, they don't want too little trail, so they got to bring it back.
Right.
So it's the opposite of running a longer rocker and getting floppy.
They really want it to be quick. And so, you know, you can basically look at it. If you pull it, if you get too much negative trail, it's like riding a unicycle. Your forks are going to be straight up and down, and it's just going to flop. There's not going to be anything that's going to keep it from doing that.
Right.
So, yeah.
And when people come into my shop and talk about cutting a frame or making a front end, yeah, what we say, you know, it's like 2 inches of trail. It's going to be great riding around in here. I mean, it's really nimble. It's light. You know, it's you're more prone to get a speed wobble out on the interstate on that 2 inches of trail. You know, but you get a chopper going, and you get 6 inches of trail. Well, now that bike's harder to ride in the parking lot. But you can go 100 miles an hour down the interstate like this, you know.
Yeah, you're going to
not going to get.
Yeah, I mean, a chopper. You've got a crazy chopper that you built out of your shop. What is that? Have you ever figured the rake and trail on that?
The rake and trail on that is right around 1.5, and that's another interesting point because it has a Sugar Bear Springer on it. And he's one of the most famous Springer builders, you know, and he sets all his bikes up right around 0. And when you turn one of his Springers, the handlebar stays where it is, and it just floats. And that's why he's always ran that tall rocker. You know, it gets it out. He has 4 different size rockers, and what that does is for the rake angle of your frame, it allows you to trail that out to what he wants or what you want, and he likes it really low in the trail numbers. So.
Yeah. Well, you know, I sat down with him in Sturgis this year on the Grease and Gears Garage stage. For those of you that don't know who Sugar Bear is, Google Sugar Bear motorcycles. The guy is a legend. But I asked Sugar Bear, I thought he was going to give me this long math thing. You know, Sugar Bear, how old is Sugar Bear? He's probably 74 years old.
Something like
that.
He's
been building these long-ass bikes for a long time. And so I thought, Sugar Bear, man, he's going to give me some old-school math and drop some trigonometry on me. And I said, man, how'd you figure that out? Because your stuff shouldn't work. And he's like, yeah, man, I just kept working at it until it worked, and then I stopped. That was his solution. But he said, yeah, I wrecked a lot of bikes figuring that out. But it's a lot of math, but the longer you get on some of these choppers, like you said, I got a Royal Enfield over there that's 10.5 feet long. And, man, that thing will cruise going straight. But as soon as I get to a turn, you know, when I got to move, I'm just like, I should just get off, pick up the rear end, move it, go the rest of the way in the parking lot. So it get a little sketchy when you slow down.
Right. And that's another point, you know, that, like I said, I never worried about trail too much, but people would say, hey, that bike you just built sitting over there, the trail's wrong. I mean, I'd be like, well, why? I just rode it here. It's, yeah. And then I'm like, well, maybe I got to figure something out. But eventually, you know, when they came out with more of the rake trees and the market's going in that direction, then, you know, then it's a little bit more than just bolting the front end on any bike and going for it, you know.
Yeah. Well, and it's important. A lot of folks, you know, you're watching on Facebook Live, you're here live at the show, whatever. A lot of people will say, well, I don't really need to know that. You know, I'm having somebody else is building my bike, so, you know, they'll figure all that out. What you and I know is we've had bikes in our shops that came from other shops, some of them even close to us, and they're unrideable. They're unsafe. You know, I've had bikes that look great on Instagram. They photo really well. When you get on them and ride them, don't just trust that if somebody's building you a custom motorcycle that they know what they're doing. If you need to know these kinds of things, if you're going to have a custom motorcycle, you're going to want to know these kinds of things so that you can make sure that what you're riding, and if you're going to have a passenger, what you're putting your passenger on is as safe as it possibly can be. So a lot of people are saying, oh, that's math, screw it, rake and trail, I don't need to know that. But even if you're going to buy a new motorcycle, you're going to want to be able to know what that rake and trail is, because before you sit on a bike, if you know what the rake and trail is, you're going to know a multitude of things about how that bike's going to ride and handle before you ever get on it. So if you can know what the rake and trail is, you're not going to be surprised when you come off your 2017 Harley Street Glide and you go get on, the XSR 700 Yamaha. Those things are set up different. You're going to know, oh, man, that thing turns a lot quicker. That thing, this responds a lot quicker. It's just like if you get off a dirt bike and go to a cruiser, knowing the rake and trail. So you can really help yourself out buying bikes, building bikes, even helping other people in your scenario. If you can say, okay, the rake and trail on this bike is at 2 3/4, so you're going to just want to know that bike's going to handle a little bit quicker. It's going to have more of a sport bike feel than one that's set up at 4 inches.
Right. And in the recent past, the big trend with the big wheels on the baggers brought a lot of the rake and trail out of the woodwork too, because people were just putting a 9-degree rake tree on a stock bagger so they could run a 26-inch wheel. Well, they would hit the interstate and and speed wobbles, and it's the geometry starts with the neck,
Yeah.
and then you go with the front end in either the rake tree or the longer rocker or the straight setups.
Yeah, and you're going to want to know what some guys are doing out there. And there's some good companies out there. I know that Misfit Industries, Chris Moose. I don't know if you know Chris. You know
yeah,
Chris, right?
I did. Chris is great. That bike over there. That
Busa. That he's built a Busa with a big wheel on it. That's in the JMP Cycles Ultimate Builder Custom Bike Show this weekend. It's just crazy. But Misfit Industries now makes for Harley Davidsons and give you good instructions. If you don't know how to weld, I wouldn't put it on. But other than that, you can pretty much do it yourself in your garage. Real nice way to be able to make your stock Harley accept a 26, 30, 32-inch wheel, whatever you want to do. I think we'll eventually get to 36s, we'll have to be riding like that. But,
right, yeah.
And then Hog Halters out of Georgia, where I was from. Hog Halters has some nice triple trees that'll set up that rake for you too. But you're going to want to pay attention. Rake and trail is important. If you don't know these kinds of things about your motorcycle, it can be dangerous for you. Even if you say, well, I've got one bike, I get on that bike, I know what that bike's like. The likelihood is that at some point you're going to want to test ride a motorcycle, and you just want to be. If you do it enough, you're going to be able to look at it and kind of eyeball it. It's important to know. It's not just geometry and trigonometry. You're just going to want to know how it is. Now, because Dana and I came back from the day, like when you were talking about how you used to do it, just letting it drop.
Right.
Man, I tell you, I would, and if it didn't drop and if it wasn't out there enough, man, I had guys pulling on that thing, and then we just weld gussets up in it and
extended tubes and
go ride,
it up
baby.
And drop her down. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, we just did some shit. I'm surprised we're still alive.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I never did that with a customer bike, though. I can tell you, I did that on mine and my buddies, and none of us died. But check out your shop, though. If your shop isn't sure about rake and trail, and they're going to be monkeying around with your front end, or if you're going to be buying a Springer front end for your bike, they're going to be asking you about the lengths and stuff. You can call Dana up at Siouxicide Choppers, and he'll walk you through that stuff. There's another company out there, now that I want to send you to them because they're relatively close, but Twisted Choppers has a nice tutorial about this on their website.
Right.
Dana's just redone Siouxicide Choppers' website here in the next couple of months. You're going to be able to go to his website and get a complete tutorial on rake and trail, and he's going to be able to refer his customers back to there with notes that he gives them on the phone. So,
hell yeah.
What else you got for us about rake and trail and front ends, man?
I think we pretty much summed it up.
I think we've covered it, huh?
Yeah. I don't know.
All right,
want
man.
anything else? Or?
No, well, I mean, does anybody have any questions? Do we have Facebook questions coming through? Do you know if Chris is monitoring that? I don't have my my iPad back here today. Yes, sir. Come on up. Hold on. People on Facebook Live yell at me all the time because they can't hear the questions.
My name's Dave, and I have a question. So when you're looking at the red line that you have drawn here through the neck, and then you're looking at the angle of the forks there, how important is it that those forks are in line with with the center line of the neck, could those forks be behind the center line of the neck as long as your rake and trail was the same? Does it matter if it was farther forward? So, for example, if let's say you had a set of 2-inch offset trees versus a set of 4-inch offset trees,
Sure.
how does that change your handling?
Basically, on this diagram, those would be an example of rake trees. So,
imagine if you're looking at the neck here, and this is the neck, this is your trees here.
Yep.
What difference was this? As long as the numbers are the same, but the distance between the neck center line.
The further out you go there,
Yep.
if you imagine that, the further out your axle moves. So right there would
Go ahead and talk right into that, though.
Right.
It would increase your negative trail because going out like this
Yep.
would move the green line forward too,
Right,
but it wouldn't change the red line.
Right, I understand that, but
Okay.
let's say you were to change the angle of the forks so that your numbers were the same. Let's say we're shooting for 4 inches of negative trail,
Okay.
but we had such a long front end that the only
You're
way to
talking
get
about
there-
having some crazy engineered triple trees is what he's
Right.
talking about.
4
Like
inch
those
offset
triple
triple
trees are going to be like super deep. I mean, yeah,
Exactly.
he's talking about almost having a horseshoe triple tree.
So your
Right.
your number is still the same. You still have 4 inches of trail, but you've got a 4-inch offset on the trees at the top. So the forks are farther forward from the center line of the neck. How does that change your handling?
I think on a lot of it, I've never run a 4-inch offset, but I know all the forks that we have run. Basically, if you run, say, a 41 millimeter wide glide standard rake, or if you run like a 5-degree rake, the 5-degree rake would be almost exactly the same as the 4-inch offset.
Yep, exactly.
So, as far as your numbers on rake and trail, I don't think it would change it at all as far as the pivot point in the way or the heaviness of your travel.
Because
Yeah.
the problem is your neck is the third point.
It's
And
the
your
pivot point.
is the pivot point, and so regardless of
fool
what
it.
you do, you can't fool it into thinking that it's
Right.
at any other angle than what it's at. That degree, if it's 45-degree rake, that degree is going to be in your trigonometry formula. When you find the cosine of that and you do that math, it's not going to change. It's a constant. You could change it, but if all you're changing is this, then you've got to have that other thing change as well.
Right. So I've got a 66 Triumph chopper with a 36-inch long front springer on the front. And in playing around in AutoCAD with the numbers, I can either make the top tree behind the neck center line and have the numbers work out right, or it has to be 4 inches in front of the neck center line and the numbers will work out. So depending on the angle of the forks, in order to get that same 4 to 6 inch trail that I'm trying to get on that, I have to figure out either I have to make a really offset set of forks or I have to tilt the forks back a little bit farther so that way the top tree is behind the neck center line and the bottom tree is in front of the neck center line.
And the other thing that we were talking about earlier, too, on a Springer, unless it's a girder,
Yep.
it's yours
Springer. It's a Springer.
or it's a regular Springer with rockers. So on that, instead of tipping your Springer back, which would in return moves your axle forward. An easier thing that we do is we have like 4 or 5 different size rockers, kind of like Sugar Bear, that we use on our build. So instead of tipping this back, if you tip this Springer back, this axle moves forward. So instead of doing that, you can make this rocker longer, which would in return have your numbers do the same thing. And you could push that out to whatever you wanted.
Okay.
And you could calculate your trail off of that, which would be a lot easier moving it there than the offset in the triple trees. And, depending on what look you want.
Okay.
That's almost the Sugar Bear scenario
Right.
that you're looking at.
Running.
Yep. Okay.
And you might even call, he's a super nice guy, you might even call Sugar Bear when you're figuring a front end like that's that dramatic. He doesn't mind kind of walking you through that either. He's pretty secure in his business model at this point. He doesn't mind sharing information. So,
All right, thank you,
hey,
gentlemen.
thanks, man.
Hope
Appreciate
we
it.
answered everything for you.
Jackie, do you need to shout out? Let's give a shout out to some of the stuff you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Grease and Gears going on up there on that front stage here at the Progressive Parlor. Talking about that Rake and Trail. Super interesting presentations all weekend long from our friends at Grease and Gears. But here in the parlor, we are still up and running. And because it's Sunday and because it's still a little early, we are hooking everybody up here at the bike show with free coffee. So make sure you stop by the coffee grinder. We've got absolutely free Nitro Brew cold coffee for everybody here at the bike show. No better way to start your day than the high-octane cold nitro brew way. Compliments of Progressive Motorcycle Insurance. And we are still dishing out those awesome free services back at Flo's Chop Shop. Free barbershop services going on back there. Free airbrush tattoos going on up here. We've also got Daniel, our in-house resident DIY mechanic back there. If you've got any questions about maintaining your ride, make sure you stop by and say hey to Daniel back there. Last but certainly not least, when you get signed up for any of these services, it automatically enters your chance to win our grand prize giveaway motorcycle, that beautiful BMW from Disowned Customs. And I'm going to throw in some free goodies. I've got free t-shirts and free shop rags going on over my girls over at the swag counter over there. So come on in, everybody. Get signed up. Get yourself hooked up with some of the awesome free stuff going on over here. A little bit of love from us to you for being members of our motorcycle family. That's us over here at Progressive Motorcycle Insurance.
Thanks, Jackie. Hey, we got Nikki and Daisy down here, too. They're Dana's better half and younger half, and they're just adorable. Want to give a big shout-out to them. And you guys doing okay? They went swimming last night here in Minneapolis. It was an indoor pool, and they said it was still cold. So, but you're from Sioux City, Iowa, so you're used to that. So, hey, Dana, thank you so much. Dana and I are almost the same age, and he looks like he's 30. And when you look at Dana and I, you wouldn't think that either one of us are smart, and you would be correct about me. But when you look at Dana, the guy's like a math whiz. You're like an idiot savant. I expect the next time I see him in a hotel lobby to be playing classical music on a piano. That's his other party trick, man. That guy's smart. Yeah. So now we know why you married him. That's it. Hey, Todd Flessner, is he in the house? We met Todd earlier. I mean, I've known Todd for a while, and but we ran into him earlier here at the show. Todd, how are you?
Hey, guys, how we doing?
Todd, we're going to, Dana and I and Chris are just going to chat a little bit about, Dana and Chris and Mark are going to work on War Pony a little bit, and they'll eventually, Dana, I guarantee you, because you're a welder, they're going to sucker you into welding something up here. Nice. They did last night, too. Todd is, he's just a tow truck driver, and no. Todd, you've got 5252 performance tuning.
Yep.
You go all over the country. Yep. They stumped me with a question. Thank God Chris didn't do it on stage, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you. It's 5250 performance tuning. Does anybody know why a performance tuner would have 5252 on their jacket? What is it? Chris.
Got it. Yep.
That's it. I'll find you something back here. I guarantee I will. I'll tell you what I'll do. Before you leave, I don't think I got one in my pocket. Let me see. I'll give you one of my cards. I'll send you one of my shop T-shirts for that, because that's smart. Yeah, right afterwards. So now you have to stay and watch. But, Todd, you travel all over the country, and like a lot of guys in the motorcycle industry, it's hard to make money just doing one thing.
Yeah, we do a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, we have to do exhaust system installation, performance suspension, performance clutches, tuning, oil changes. We have to do a variety of stuff to make this work.
Right. So you've got this. You've just got a new one.
A new trailer.
Yeah. New one. I was so hoping I could buy your old one.
Yeah.
And but. I just, I'm trying to build my shop. I can't, it's just never have enough money for all the stuff I want. But you just got this beautiful rig, and how many rallies do you go to a year?
Well, we've dialed it down quite a bit to about 12 or 13 major rallies, being Daytona, Sturgis, and some tried and true ones that we know where we can go and make a living at.
Yeah.
Years ago, we were doing 1820. We were doing everything from a wood tick festival to you name it.
Got to choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. Man. I tell you, that's the name of the game. It used to be you could go everywhere and just money. We were ballers, as the kids said 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But now, you really have to pick and choose and do that. Now, tell me, what do you run into? And Dana, I want to ask you this. Dana, come on up here. I'm going to ask Dana first. When people bring their bikes to your shop and they're detuned, what do you find most often is the problem in your local shop that you're having to deal with?
On the tuning problem?
On the tuning problems.
A lot of the shops, it's hard for them to get them to dyno tune your bike. It's hard to get them in, especially like if I do work on a bike and then I want to take it somewhere else and get it tuned. You know, if they do it, then they're pretty much, why didn't you have us do the work and stuff?
Yeah, so that's just it. Shops, like, I don't have a dyno.
Right.
Do you have a dyno?
I don't have a dyno.
Dynos are relatively expensive.
Right.
And if you're not using it every day, or if you're don't have a business that's mobile with it, a dyno sitting in your shop, man, it's just sucking cash out of your pocket. And so when Dana and I, to Dana's point, I do the same thing. You do the work, you take it to another shop to get it dynoed. The best thing that shop can do for their own business, it's not honest, but the best thing they can do, no matter how good a work we do, best thing they can do for their business is to say, oh, this isn't set up. You should have this combination of stuff and that kind of stuff. And so for us, it's a real problem. But the good thing is when we do work, if we know where a guy like 5250 Performance Tuning is going to be set up in an area, because you do 12, 14 rallies a year, you're going to be close to us at some point, like Sturgis. Yep. Wherever a guy, you say, hey, once you get this bike broken in and you've been riding it for a while, and you're at the event, take it to this guy, Todd, and his guys are going to run this thing through. When guys bring their bikes to you on the tuner, what do you see most often?
We see a lot of shops, and we won't go into any names, brand specific or anything, but a lot of them are just doing a basic flash. A lot of them don't even have a dyno, so they may be doing the work and just flashing the ECM. They're not truly tuning it. And every tuner's got his opinion as to what he likes to work with, what he's proficient with, and there's a huge discrepancy out there. The manufacturers are really good at pushing their stuff with their marketing. They'll tell you it's the best thing since sliced bread. Well, when we have to tune them and make them right for you, we can tell you right off that there's a lot of systems we won't even work with because it's very little we can do with it, So when a guy comes to me with a product on there and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't honestly take your money because we can't really truly tune both cylinders independently or,
that
do
became
the things we want.
It used to not be the case because bikes were carbureted. And they didn't run computers,
Right.
So back in the day, a dyno in a bike or a car was awesome but now they'll lock you out of your own computer, which I think is I'll put it out there. I think it's dishonest for people to do that, to sell you a product. Right. Once I buy it, it should be mine, and I should be able to modify whatever I want on that product for my needs. And so, and not calling them out for specifically this, but I was surprised when Chris and I have talked a lot about this. When Harley came out with the Milwaukee 8 engine, I don't know how many people are familiar with this. My brother happens to work in a Harley dealership, and he's the one that highlighted this for me. It doesn't matter what you do to that bike. You can buy a Stage 4 Screaming Eagle kit or whatever Harley sells, the best of the best performance stuff. You're going to be able to get to 114 miles an hour faster than the other guy, but you're not going to be able to go over 114 miles an hour. They have it capped. They have the new Milwaukee 8 computer governed, so you can't go any faster than that. How about that? That just pisses me off that I can't go faster than what I want to do. Now, but you are able to get around some of that. Now, with those bikes, I know that I got on a forum the other day, and I know better than that, because the guy's type faster than me, and I get angry, and I'm punching the screen. I should never get on a computer. But this guy said, well, I've got a Milwaukee 8, and I'm making, 160 horsepower, and it's taking it just fine. Well, I private messaged a dude outside of the forum, and I'm like, dude, come on, I'm talking about a stock bike, just trying to modify it. And he'd changed the ECU. He put a turbo on it. He's doing all that stuff.
Yep.
So what bikes can you tune at 5250 Performance Tuning? If somebody brings it to you, across brands, you can do just about anything, right?
We can tune anything, but we choose to primarily stick with V-twin. And
that's
primarily Harleys.
Right.
Yep. And nowadays we do very few carburetors because we're so backed up with fuel injection. Guys come to the rallies, and the first thing they're doing is they're doing an air cleaner, maybe an exhaust system. Well, anytime you change on a fuel-injected bike, first thing you got to do is go see a guy with a dyno and have him dial it all in for you.
Yeah. What I do now when customers bring bikes to me and they're fuel injected, you're going to laugh. I convert them to carburetors.
Yeah.
I mean, I've run into a guy in Germany that will build me this nice little microprocessor. It's got Charles Altman Micro Machines, and I put his little thing on there, and he'll do all the timing for me. Right. And I just convert them back to carburetors, man, and then I can do anything to them that I want to do.
Kind of like earlier with the Magneti Morelli. I mean,
exactly.
some of those systems were so frustrating, you throw a Makuni on it. You know, you love your bike, but that was the only option.
There was a guy here at the show yesterday, came up to me after I got off stage and was like, hey, man, I live right down by you. I've got a 98 Road King. It's fuel injected. He said, when I get to a stoplight now, after it warms up, the oil light comes on, and it goes blah, 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 and it lopes, and I can't get it up. He said, what should I do for it? And I said, well, you got two options. You can sell me that bike really cheap, or you can bring it to me, and I'll put a carburetor on it. We'll get rid of that Morelli fuel injection, which was crap, and it was crap when they put it on there and they knew it, but it was the best thing out there at the time.
At the time, yeah, it was.
So now, when somebody brings you their bike, you're going to be able. What parameters are you going to be able to look at on those bikes when they bring them to you?
Anything and everything. I mean, with the electronics these days, there's literally nothing we can't adjust, nothing we can't change.
Okay, I had a guy bring me, and I'm sure this is a story. I had a guy bring me an old Big Dog. It was man, it was old. It was like a late '90s, early 2000 Big Dog. He was like, man, I've had it at several shops. I've done everything I can. I don't know what to do with it. And I was like, so I rode it, and I was like, yeah, I mean, it makes good power. But I said, let's see what we can do. So I took it to my buddy with a dyno in Atlanta, put it on the dyno, and he tuned it on that dyno. The guy came and picked his bike up. I charged him for what the dyno was, and for the hour it took me to take it there and bring it back. And I bet the thing picked up 30 foot-pounds of torque, probably 20 horsepower, just getting it tuned correctly. Do you see that pretty regularly?
Yeah, a lot of times we see guys come in, they've hogged out their catalytic converter, their baffles. I mean, these bikes need back pressure. They come with an exhaust that we wouldn't have recommended, cams that we wouldn't have recommended. Everything has to work together to truly be able. I mean, we can tune anything, but we're limited to what you bring us unless you're willing to change exhaust or something like that.
Right on. So, I mean, Dano, is there a dyno around you? Does somebody have a dyno around you?
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 of them around me. And when we dyno our bikes, most of the time, it's Siouxicide Power Sports,
Okay.
They'll do our dynoing. A lot of times we use like a Power Vision. In my shop, a lot of times we'll have pipes and in the air cleaner, and we'll just put a download from the Power Vision in. Anything over that, then we'll have dynoed. When he talks about when you get a lot of stuff not working together, a couple years ago I was trying to get the Sturgis, and I had this really Frankensteined out motor, and so I had actually 2 systems put in it, and I was trying to auto tune it myself, and I got a hold of Todd. So I had it running good enough, that it would make it to Sturgis. So when I pulled into Sturgis, I went to Todd, and the one guy that was dynoing for you, he says, you ought to get an award because your bike's the worst tuned bike. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah. But
and you didn't trade it either. You actually wrote it.
I wrote it, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's brutal.
Yeah.
Because I had a pipe that wasn't working with the motor, and it was just one of those things. I had to run that pipe, but Todd wouldn't have recommended it.
No.
And that's a good thing to think about. We had Corey Ness and Brian Clock up here yesterday just talking about motorcycle design. And I talked with Corey a little bit. One of the things that's really changed a lot in the last 15, 20 years is that you can buy families of parts now. And, being able to buy a family of parts allows you cosmetically to be consistent if you don't have an eye for design instead of just putting a bunch of crap on there that's mismatched. The same thing's true of performance parts. Now, they have families of parts. Now, I'm going to mention a name that they're here, and I'm not ashamed of it, but that I'm doing this, but they're not known necessarily as a performance company, but Kuryakin has a hop-up setup, they call it. It's a hop-up for bikes, and they've sent me one of those, and I'm going to put it on a 2011 Road King. But it's a family of parts. It's the cams, it's the pipes, it's all
air cleaner.
Air cleaner. It was all designed to work together.
Yep.
And so you're going to want to think about that, because the upside to a family of parts is that now you can buy exhaust, and people now buy exhaust cosmetically instead of buying it for performance. And so I'm sure you see a lot of that. Oh, this looks good. Hey, it's not a new phenomenon, though. How many of you guys were riding back in the day and you just wanted to blah, 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 blah. So you put straight pipes on your shovel head. Everybody had drag pipes, man. And worst pipe ever in the history.
Drag pipe for the drag strip.
Exactly. Chris wouldn't talk to me for years because I was in the production custom industry. I worked for Iron Horse, Big Dog, Big Bear Choppers, Swift, all those companies that were out there, because I got tired of busting my knuckles. I could sell this stuff, and it was easy.
That was a contradiction in term. I'm just saying.
It is a custom production. It's an oxymoron. But with those particular companies, it was always, people would put those dump pipes. They'd have this 100 cubic inch S&S motor, a square motor, which is a great 4-inch bore, 4-inch stroke motor. They dump it out with a pipe this long, and now they've got basically a 74-inch shovel head. I mean, they might as well have just done that.
I'll tell you a funny thing real quick about those baloney cut drag pipes, because really when I started to get to know Jim Libonetti from Megaflow, Jim started explaining to me volumetric efficiency and dynamic cylinder head timing and, reversionary characteristics and how that stuff all worked. And it's a simple adjustment. Like, we used to take an old trick, like at the end of the pipe, we'd put a bolt through the end of the pipe, and then one nut at a time we would add to that bolt. And you could watch, if you had access to a dynamometer, you could watch the torque curve just lift in the middle. Like, it's amazing how much reversionary characteristics will play out in the production of power of your motorcycle.
Yeah, and so there's all kinds of tricks. Now, this is a twin cam, just a dummy motor that we're using as we're building the War Pony, which is what Chris and Mark are doing up here. They're still working out this rear fender here, but so for the War Pony build that we're doing over the 7-show series, if somebody brings you a bike with a twin cam in it and it's stock, they bring it to your particular tuner at a rally. What are you going to suggest to them that they do in order to get the most power, the most efficiently, and the most economically out of a twin cam motor? What do you need to do to a twin cam to really get your power out of it?
Well, like we were talking, everything has to work together, so you have to have the appropriate cam selection. Do you want head work or not? The exhaust has to work with the air cleaner and et cetera, and then you have to have a good tuner and a good tune. Everybody's different. A lot of them just want to wake it up a little bit so that when they're pulling that hill or passing that truck, the bike isn't dogging. When they grab a handful of throttle, it just pulls consistently. They're not having to downshift, things like that.
My go-to cam is in an Evo is an EV27.
Yep.
Because you're going to either load it up with a passenger or a bag, and that EV27 cam, you don't have to do any head work. When you get to a hill, you're just going to, you're just going to be able to keep rolling, and it's not going to kill your fuel mileage. A lot of guys buy cams out of their pants instead of out of their head.
Off the forum.
Yeah,
my buddy,
they're going to say,
that guy.
I got this cam. And it's like, that's awesome. Now you need to go spend $4,000 in head work because you've just blew it. So
one of the things about dealing like a company with like Kuryakin or S&S or some of these, and like you were talking, they have systems that have been dyno tested, dyno proven, where if you buy this package, these heads, this cam, et cetera, it's pretty reliable. You're going to get the same results over and over and over. The only variable there is what tuner you're going with.
Right. I've got a good friend, Jerry Hall. He owns Jerry's Cyclecraft in Moreland, Georgia. He's been there for 47 years now, I think. He opened his shop in his dad's furniture store. His nephew, Jamie, runs it now, or works there and kind of runs it. I think Jerry's getting ready to want to retire. But the S&S used to send him cams back in the day because they didn't have dynos, all that kind of stuff. And he had a genius butt. He could tell.
By the feel.
And still, but very few people have that.
Yeah.
So that's why he wanted to. So
now, things like riding by the seat of your pants, reading spark plugs, that's kind of all gone away to the old drag strip stuff. The old guys still do it.
Yeah,
Nowadays, it's looking at a laptop.
Now, if somebody brings you their bike and it's bone stock, you don't get into cams.
We do, but only at our larger shows like Daytona
Okay.
and Sturgis, where we're there 10 days, where we bring extra guys, extra lifts, extra inventory.
Okay.
Kind of funny. We do this a bait freedom rally, and last year a guy had kind of been going back and forth with us if we'd do cams there, and we're like, well, what are you interested in? We'll bring a few sets with us. Dang, if we didn't get that motor opened up, we not only did his cam job, but 2 more at this little freedom rally, and it was just like you just never know.
Yeah.
You know?
So those of you on Facebook Live here, I mean, you've got access to a local guy right here, 5250 Performance Tuning. You're right here, right? I mean,
Yep. We don't do anything locally here. I don't have a shop anymore.
Right.
So it's all mobile.
Okay. But I mean, they can ask you questions. You can go to the website. You know.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I mean,
And
you've got a resource there. But you know, if you're out there and you want something done to your bike and you want it tuned and you really get online, get up with Todd, because Todd's going to be able to meet you at a rally and have your set. You'll be set up and you'll know exactly what the budget is, what it's going to cost, and what, more importantly, what you're going to get when you get all done. Yeah. So if somebody brings you a stock Harley, though, and they just put air cleaner and pipes on it and those things work together, what are you looking at in terms of improving the performance on that engine?
It really has a lot of variables. It depends on what exhaust they have on it, what air cleaner. I mean, what tuner are we working with? There's a lot of variables there.
How much? How much
stage
can
one
that
kit?
change?
You know, we like to see 10 to 15%.
Okay.
Right in there.
Now, 10, 15%. All of a sudden, even if you don't know anything, you could be just like me. You could be dumb and a little overweight, a lot overweight. But stop looking at me that way. Anyway, you could. 10%, you get on your bike.
You can feel.
You're going to feel that.
Yep.
15%, you're going to feel like he just gave you a brand new motorcycle.
And, you know, every one of these motors is different. You know, the factory has never claimed that they've graded their motors. I don't know. It seems like the Shriners, the police, the firefighters editions always seem stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, you could take 3 motors built one after another, and everyone's going to perform differently.
It's just that's the way machines work.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter how close your tolerances are. I mean, that's just the truth in motorcycle manufacturing for some reason. With cars, it seems to be different. But I think it's just the mass production.
I think with the metric stuff, they're more consistent too.
More consistent too,
compared to
yeah.
that.
So now, Chris, I'm going to ask you a question while you're doing that. So pick up that microphone.
There you go.
Share with Todd what your plan is for War Ponies drivetrain.
Well, I was really lucky because, like we said, our donor bike was an S&S 110-inch. We had already had, the best stuff put in it. We had taken it originally. We removed all the electronic components and went with the Zippers Auto Tuner and actually took it to Danny Fitzmaurice, and they professionally tuned it. So he designed my base map. They incorporated the base map and did all the tuning, and it was serious. I mean, he rode it as much as I did. It was one of the most ridiculous motorcycles I ever rode. It was super sick fast. So all we've done with that, and it was comfortable. On top of, all we're really going to do with that is Danny's taken the motor back apart and he's cleaning everything up, making sure that we're solid because it had 240,000 miles on it. But we're going to keep the exact same tune, short of there'll be some modification for a different exhaust. But other than that, it's basically going to be the same thing. I'm a big, big fan. Like, for me personally, and I know everybody has, when you come to tuning, like specific types of carburetors, specific types of fuel injection management, it's really a personal preference issue. But for me, as many different parts of the country I end up on with a motorcycle, that Zippers Auto Tuner, I would not have another fuel injected motorcycle without having that package on that bike, because really if you have somebody that's really good at what they're doing with tuning, that thing it's almost just set it and forget it. Once you have a guy actually put his stamp on that thing, you don't really have to do anything anymore. At least that's what I found in this motor.
Now, auto tuners. You can disagree.
Well,
it's a garage.
An auto tune, I mean, we don't work a lot with the zippers, and there's a whole bunch of different reasons behind that. And a lot of that has to do with the factory nowadays. These guys that are, spending $35,000, $40,000 on a new bike, they do not want to change their ECM. You roll that into Harley, you're out in Sturgis, anywhere, and you have any kind of an issue and you have to go to the dealership, they're going to look at that Zippers ECM and say, sorry, roll it out of here. That's the one.
That's absolutely true.
That's the downfall with the zippers.
Once you make the decision to go to that thing, you're literally taking the Harley-Davidson heart out of it, and you're replacing it with what Zippers does.
We like the DynoJet Power Vision a lot because, I mean, it's kind of a ghost in there. If the guy's good, he can find it in there, but an average tech at a Harley dealership is not even going to know we've been in that ECM. That's one of the things we like about the Power Vision.
Now, see, I will speak up when I tell you my personal preference is that auto tuner from Zippers. The reason I really do like it is it's true closed loop auto tuning. You know what I mean? There's a difference between open loop tuners and closed loop tuners. Closed loop they're constantly taking feedback from the all
the sensors.
I'm sorry, the exhaust sensors. They're constantly reading those O2 sensors. They're constantly looking for more efficiency, and especially when it comes to the zipper stuff, I forget the exact number, but let's say like on the old Delphi system, there was maybe 7 or 9 different points across each RPM range where they would have a tuning opportunity across that RPM range. That Zippers Auto Tuner has something like 28 different points where it can adjust over each RPM range, you know, so it's a really, and I mean, leave it to guys, you know, like this gentleman right here. People who have race history and have performance running through their blood, they're going to think about all those little points that they can do something to get a little more juice, you know.
Right on. So, I mean, bottom line is there are a lot of different things when we're looking at customizing motorcycles. To your point about OEM stuff, listen, if your bike's brand new and under warranty, I tell customers all the time, I don't work on brand new bikes. I mean, they can bring it and I don't even like doing cosmetic things to them because if you change it cosmetically and they take it to the dealership, that dealership's going to look at it and say, well, I just know that if he changed something there, he changed something in that motor, and then the customer comes back. If it's under warranty, leave it under warranty. You know, I mean, you know, let that happen. But once your bike's out of warranty or once you've decided that you no longer want that warranty, it's well worth your time to be able to get the thing tuned, change some stuff up on it. You can change your exhaust and, you know, the guys you'll see on the stage over the 7-show series, come to our shop, come to us at a show. We'll be able to walk you through. We'll find you something pretty, if that's what you need, that will also perform. There's so much stuff out there, and we can direct you and guide you for how you're going to ride. If you're going to be all over the country, if you're going to be in one region of the country, you're going to want to look at that, which is another huge issue that I find with guys. They'll buy a bike on eBay, guy will advertise it and say the thing runs like a gem. They get it
at sea level.
They get it, yeah. Well, they get it to Florida, and they're like, I don't know. I said, where'd you buy the bike? And they said, well, I bought it from a guy in Colorado.
Yeah.
And he said Mile High Harley Davidson had been the only one that ever touched it. And I'm like, time out. You know, you were in the mountains, and now you're at sea level. So.
Well, I'll tell you another one of the biggest problems, and this is nobody can disagree with this. One of the biggest problems when you're in the business of providing performance, one of the biggest problems is the customer being honest with herself. You know, a customer comes in all the time, they want horsepower numbers. I want a big horsepower number so they can go to the bar with their buddies and they can talk about how much horsepower there is. But really it's about the usable range where you ride your motorcycle. That's the most common mistake people make when they come into a guy like this and they say, I want my bike to make more power. Well, where do you ride it? You know what I mean? Are you looking for power? Like, are you a highway rider and you're out there enjoying the putting miles down and you want that pass of truck power? Or are you a stoplight to stoplight guy? You want to get off the line, leave your friends behind you, and identifying where you actually ride your motorcycle the majority of the time helps this man create that area where you're going to get the most out of the money that you spend for performance too.
Well, a lot of that has to do with your cam selection. If your cams are coming on at 42 or 4,500 and you're making 110 horse, 115 foot-pounds of torque at that RPM, I mean, that's way up at the top end. Right. I mean, most guys, especially with baggers, want all bottom end.
All right, folks, we've run out of time here at Grease and Gears Garage. Your takeaways are this. All right, your takeaways are this. Spend some time learning rake and trail, okay? You're going to be able to eventually look at a bike, determine what the rake and trail is, so that before you test ride it, before you take a demo on it, you're going to have some idea of how that bike's going to handle. You're going to be able to determine, okay, that rake and trail is either going to make that bike a little heavier or it's going to make it a little quicker in terms of how it's going to steer and handle. If you're getting a custom motorcycle built, check your builder, check your builder, check your builder. I love it myself when people ask the questions like that, rake and trail.
Yeah.
And get your bike tuned, man. If you can't find Todd, find somebody that is recommended to you. to be able to tune your bike. I guarantee you, if you've never had your bike tuned and you've made some changes to it, you're going to get seat of the pants performance upgrade, 10-15%, if you just have the thing tuned. So, guys, we appreciate you being with us. We're going to be back again at 3 o'clock, and we're just enjoying ourselves at Grease and Gears Garage. Chris?
I think at some point today we're actually going to mount this fender. We've got our holes drilled. We're
Sweet.
lined up. We're ready to go. So
War Ponies coming along. Check us out on Facebook. Thanks, folks.
Well, put your hands together for Pat and everybody up there.